Hi everyone, my name is Erin Wyckoff. I really appreciate whoever made the suggestion to post a video to YouTube. I'm going to try as much as possible to use that method in order to contribute to the discussions. To give you a little bit background about myself, I was born and raised in central New Jersey. I studied German language and literature as my bachelor's degree at Rutgers University in New Brunswick. After I completed my degree, I received a Fulbright grant to go and teach English as an assistant in Remscheid, Germany. I was doing that for a year and I really liked it, so I decided to continue on and do it for another year, also in Germany, in a town called Baumholder, a little bit south of Remscheid, in a state called Rhineland-Pfalz. Ironically enough, I never wanted to be a teacher. Initially, when I completed my education and my bachelor's degree, I wanted to experience it and to dabble in it, and I found that I really enjoyed it once I actually got on into the field. So much so that I wish to continue with it at the master's level. Upon my second year in Germany, I started applying for jobs, and I was applying for jobs in the international education sphere. And I was hired by Kaplan International to work in New York City at the Pace University location for Global Pathways program. And the Global Pathways program is currently at two universities in the United States, Northeastern University as well as Pace University. And this program is designed for students who wish to study at the university but who might not necessarily have the English language level that it's required in order to be directly admitted. When I started in the program, I initially started as an international student advisor, more concentrating on student services and since then I've been promoted to director of the program. So we work a lot with admissions, enrollment management, student services, on-the-ground student services, as well as distance student services. When I say distance student services, I mean student services when students are not yet in the program, so pre-arrival support, online orientation, but then also on the ground acculturation programs, culture learning programs, as well as in the actual curriculum itself. The Global Pathways program is a mixture of English language courses as well as academic credit-bearing courses and non-credit-bearing courses. And when the student finally fully completes the program, if they successfully complete it, they then matriculate fully into the university and enter into their full degree program with all of their credits that they earned during Global Pathways. And then they're able to complete their full degree program at the university. So I really enjoy working with students learning English, if you can't already tell from that background. But vice versa, I also enjoy working with students who are learning languages other than English. Having come from that field myself, I just really appreciate the culture as well as the language mixed together. I don't think that learning a language comes without learning culture. I think that there's culture embedded into language, and I definitely saw that with German. And then after having learned German, I came back to it, started to learn the foundations of how to teach English as a foreign language as well, and I definitely see it in the English language, so that definitely fascinates me. And I hope then in the future to be able to continue in the international education sphere, be it either in study abroad or in English language teaching, ESL. Those would be the areas that I would be interested in continuing in, or just in general, working with diverse populations of people. I think the skills that are learned in this field are definitely skills that are needed in many spheres of jobs and career fields nowadays. And so that this is a prime topic, this whole international education, and a topic that relates to other areas. I apologize in advance. I have not quite gotten used to speaking to a camera on my computer, so it's a little bit awkward for me right now. Hopefully, after a few times, it will become a little bit more natural. But apologies until it hopefully sometimes gets to that point. If I'm lucky, I'll be able to come on into the classroom every once in a while. Like I said, I currently work in New York City. However, I do live in Pennsylvania, right in the Bethlehem area. It's just that the commute time and the work day does not allow for me to actually normally be home for once class starts. Maybe I'll get lucky and that will change in the future, but for now, I will participate to my full potential online. To lead into then some of the conversation that was had in the classroom. Actually, let me start by saying, if possible, I would beg everyone to sit up front and to sit together, because on the listeners' end from the recording, it was very difficult to hear everyone's contributions to the conversation. I'm not sure if that's my technology or if it's the microphone in the classroom. It could possibly be my technology, but I found it very difficult to hear about 50% of the conversation and the discussion that was held. It was very easy to hear Professor Wiseman, but I think that's also because Professor Wiseman, you were located right near the microphone. I'm not sure if there's anything that can be done about that, but it was really difficult to hear the conversations. So if anyone can speak up louder or sit closer to the mic, it's really highly appreciated. Okay, so now leading on into the onion metaphor. So my take on the onion metaphor is that I think it works to a degree. I think the onion metaphor works, though, only if it's applied person to person. I don't think that each person is going to have the same onion, the same view of globalization and contextualization as the next person, especially when it gets down to all those layers, that contextualization within the onion. Every person has a very multifaceted view of what those topics within the onion are. And I don't think that just one onion is going to apply to everyone. Maybe it would fit more if there was one onion per person. But even that then also limits how changes occur and how that onion can change inside. So that was my viewpoint on the onion. As far as synonyms for contextualization go, very much tied to my view about the onion. I think contextualization can also be summarized with words like understanding and interpretation. From the examples that I heard and from my current understanding of what contextualization is that it's that each person's interpretation and then also use of a specific topic that stems out of globalization. So I think it very much depends upon each person's interpretation of that topic, and thus contextualization. As far as how context becomes more important, I think context becomes more important with globalization because globalization in a way puts a magnifying glass up against context. Before people started to use the realm of globalization to evaluate topics, maybe things were viewed on a smaller scale, but I think really what might make it sound better is that globalization has given the world this large sphere to look at things, and that because now we're able to look at things on this globalized sphere, we can also then narrow down to a more localized sphere, and that therefore context becomes more important because we are able to zoom down and look at then the details. because sorry about that, my dog's playing with this ball. Because we're able to see globalization and then narrow down. Then the conversation led into language and the power of language. For anyone who's interested in a little bit more about that, I had just seen a very interesting video called The Dialogue. It was produced by MSU, and the topic behind the video was they sent a group of students from the United States, very diverse group of students from the United States, to China, and those students then stayed with Chinese students in China. And one of the topics that came up was the power of language. Throughout the majority of the video, all the conversation was held in English, and during one of their classroom experiences in China, the professor said, okay, now we're going to switch it around. None of the conversation can be in English right now. It can only be 100% in Chinese. And what was interesting was to see the looks on the students' faces. When everyone was speaking English, the looks on the Chinese students' faces were very understanding. They'd come from a background where they had to learn English and where they could understand what was going on and what was being talked about, even though everything was being spoken in English, because they learned English previously. Whereas when things were switched around and all the conversation was occurring in Chinese, you could see on the students' faces who were from the United States, zero understanding. No clue or concept of what was going on within the conversation. So that whole power of language was very interesting to see there. And then the students' comments afterwards of how they felt on both sides of things was interesting to kind of, really in-depth and evaluate that kind of a situation. Definitely recommend it to everyone if you're able to view it. I believe it's supposed to be coming out on TV within the next few weeks or month or so. Then we spoke about the classroom and how you can see globalization in the classroom. And when I was thinking of classrooms here in this area, I first off thought of how in majority of public schools in Pennsylvania, you would find computers with internet. Automatically right there, the students have a source to access the worldwide community right through the computer and through the internet. Also, their textbooks. Textbooks usually have publishers or authors or contributors who are from a worldwide sphere, or even from another country themselves, or just come from a background that has a worldwide viewpoint. So very globalized textbooks. And then also to the fact that there's a lot of language teaching in many high schools, in public schools nowadays, so that students can not only take the language that they learn in those classes, but then also take the culture that they've learned in those classes and be able to apply it outside the classroom, whether they know it or not. I think there's a lot of skills that are taught in those classes, whether the students know that they're using them or not. It's just that a little bit larger of a view, more wide, globalized viewpoint that they're being taught. I don't know if it's necessarily a globalized viewpoint, but a globally aware viewpoint. That's probably a better term for it. So yeah, hopefully I will be able to participate in some of the conversations in person. I also did want to touch on some of my interests as far as the NGO project goes. From my background, you might already be aware, I have the very high interest in English language teaching as well as foreign language teaching. So if anyone has a similar interest background, please let me know. That would be something that I'd be interested in. I also have a lot of interest in history as well as American Indians and Native Americans. So those would be two other areas where, if you're thinking of possibly wanting to do an NGO for any history teaching or anything involving history or American Indians, I would be very interested in either of those. And if I have any more detailed ideas, I will definitely post them. But if you're thinking of any one of those four things or something that could be tied to it, let me know. Hopefully we can team up. Like I said, I am in the Pennsylvania area and right near Bethlehem, so I might not be able to participate in class all the time, but for meeting up to put together the NGO project, I still would be able to meet in person, just not necessarily earlier than 7 o'clock at night. Because I usually get home around 7 o'clock. So definitely let me know, and I look forward to hopefully meeting everyone in person, and to the rest of the class. Thanks so much.